Okay, it should be live now. If you want to call the meeting to order.
Okay, and you've invited the public in?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Cassie. On behalf of the City Council and the staff of Syracuse City, I'd like to welcome you tonight, Syracuse City Council regular business meeting of April 14th, 2020. It is 6 p.m. and we will call this meeting to order. This public meeting will be held electronically in accordance with the executive order of 2020-1 issued by Governor Herbert on March 18th of 2020, suspending the enforcement of provisions of the Utah Code 52-4-202 and 52-4-207 due to the infectious disease COVID-19 novel coronavirus. No physical meeting location will be available. The YouTube live stream is available to you online if you would like to use that. And you can connect to this meeting using the electronic link that is contained at https://zoom.us/I-718901726. I'll now call the meeting to order. Individuals who would like to comment in our public comment area, we've asked them to do so either by melding themselves to us by writing in an email by 5 o'clock this evening. And we're going to try a little bit tonight, if there is public comment, to allow the public comment to be available to you for about 3 minutes, And if you'd state your name and place of residence. We'll talk more about that when we get to that place. So the meeting is called to order. I've asked Corinne if she'd offer an invocation or a thought, and then the Pledge of Allegiance to be offered by Councilman, I know him best as Seth. So Seth, would you lead us in that pledge?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Our Father in heaven, we thank you that we can gather together this evening to address the city business, and we're grateful for the technology which has been provided that we can do so in safety. We pray, Father in heaven, that thou wilt be with all of thy children throughout the world and bless them with thy healing hand. We pray, Father, that thou wilt help us to be good and kind to all those around us and help wherever we can. And we pray, Father, for guidance in this meeting tonight, that we will listen to thy directions and do the best we very much can. And we look to thee for the example of thy Son, and pray that we will do his will always. And this we humbly pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, please arise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
Of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda with one amendment. Item number 5, the applicant has withdrawn his request to be on the agenda this evening, so item 5 should be stricken. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion by Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, was that you, Seth?
I believe it was me.
Jordan.
Jordan, okay. Have a second from Jordan. Any discussion, council?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, hearing no objection, that would be unanimous. We're at a point where public comment is invited. We have 2 residents that have submitted in writing comments that we will read and become part of the record. We'll ask Cassie to do that in just a minute. And then, as I said before, we're going to invite those that are joining this meeting, this electronic meeting, if any of them would like to comment, we'd invite them to, I guess the best way to do so might be, Cassie, can they raise their hand?
Yes.
They can raise their hand, and you have in your controls there the ability to raise your hand so that I can see who that would be. So Cassie, would you read those written comments that you've received?
Yes, the first person that submitted comments is Whitney Lee. Her email says, I am very grateful for what the city has done during this pandemic. Too often disabled people are neglected in emergencies. Will Syracuse City consider including disabled on the Emergency Planning Council to ensure that our voices and needs are not overlooked? The second public comment that we received is from Rachel Page. She says, hi, council members. First off, thank you for all of your efforts to keep the city running smoothly during these weird times. Tonight, I would like to further address the mixed use zoning that you will be discussing further tonight. When I attended the last meeting about this, you were discussing how much commercial would qualify for a certain height and or density of apartment buildings. It seemed that every time a slightly higher commercial square footage was suggested for 3 stories, it would be shot down, saying that we basically need to make it lower so that it's easier for the developers to bring in commercial to qualify for 3-story apartments. However, it should be harder for a developer to qualify to put 3-story and higher density apartments in Syracuse. They should be held to a very high commercial standard for that, because frankly, that's not what the Syracuse citizens I've heard from want to begin with. Even in the city's own general plan, apartments are not preferred in the city, but it seems we are trying to figure out a way to make it as easy as possible to allow them to be built. I know I am not alone in the feeling that 3-story apartments are not a good fit for Syracuse City. If 3-story apartments are the goal for the commercial square footage suggestions you are making, and that seems to be the standard height you are looking to get based on the commercial square foot numbers being thrown out there, then we will obviously see way more of those in the city than I think we would want. They should be few and far between, so it's not bad to require that a developer bring in a killer commercial development in order to even qualify for 3-story or higher density units. Yes, that would be more difficult, but I think that's okay. If they can't qualify, they don't qualify. We would hope you will represent the citizens in this matter and not just look to make it easier for the developers as you discuss mixed use. And if mixed use isn't a good fit for the city right now, before we've even seen what we are paying Mayor Godfrey's firm to show us would be a good fit, then maybe now isn't the time to add mixed use zoning to the city. Maybe we need to take a step back, especially in these times, and get a better grasp of what we need out of our city, especially with a new LDS temple being built down the road. That will change things drastically and would most certainly present new opportunities so that we don't have to settle on what's presented now that might not be the best option going forward. Thanks again, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I will now open this up to those that are connected through Zoom. If you would like to comment, if you would raise your hand, would you help me with that, Cassie, and help me recognize who they are so that I can call on them? 3 minutes, and then we'd ask you to place your name.
Yeah, there are no raised hands right now.
Okay, hearing and seeing none, I will close the public comment at this point. We'll reopen it later on in the meeting.
Mayor, am I the only one who can't see an agenda? Is there an agenda to be seen?
I've printed mine.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, it seems like last time we had the agenda displayed, but maybe, okay, I haven't printed mine. Somebody else's agenda then, maybe I'll have to, okay, thank you.
I switch back and forth usually from the packet back to this and back.
Yeah,
That's what I've done.
okay.
Any other discussion on that? I found it better for me that I print out the hard copy of just, not the whole packet, just the agenda for all the meetings that are involved.
Mhm.
Better for an old set of eyes for me rather than switching back and forth. Council, we're at item 3, an item of common consent. We've discussed this particular issue at length a couple of times in work sessions. an opportunity to authorize the administration to execute an interlocal agreement with Davis County Animal Control for their services. Would that be still available for a common consent? If so, I'd approve and I'd look for a motion.
Mayor, I make the motion that we approve the proposal by the Davis County Animal Control Services for the year 2020.
Do I have a second?
Or is
Second,
that for 21?
Second.
2021.
Second by Councilwoman Bingham. Any other discussion, council?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, here appears to be unanimous. We're at the point of approving minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes before us that we need to approve or amend. The minutes of the work session held February 11th of 2020. Seems so long ago, doesn't it? February 25th, 2020, and the special meeting we held on February 25th, 2020, the work session that accompanied that, and then a business meeting, the first one in March 10th of 2020. Any discussion of any of those?
There was just one spot that I think it meant to say concerned, that Councilwoman Bingham was concerned, but I think it said considered. Does that matter? And I'm so sorry, I can't pull it up and show you where it was because I had marked it on just my, on the iPad here that I've got on this one. So if we don't care so much about a grammatical, I mean, I'm sure that people can figure out that it meant to say concerned rather than considered.
Could you share that with Cassie after?
Yeah,
the meeting?
I'll do that after if that's okay.
Do that,
Great.
a friendly amendment to. Any further discussion, council? I'd accept the motion to approve all 4 with the
So
amendment.
moved.
Hear that from Lisa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Hey, Mayor. I'm just chiming in to let you know, I think that's on page 23 of the March 10th
Thank you.
minutes.
Okay.
Line 22
Okay.
of March 10th regular meeting.
Cassie, will you correct that? We
Yes.
have a motion and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, that stands approved. I'm getting a signal that my internet is unstable. Am I breaking up?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Every once in a while, not bad though.
I'm
not
sorry.
bad.
I'm sorry. Okay, item number 5 has been stricken from this agenda and will appear on a future agenda. Let's go to item 6, council, and let me just explain to you what we're going to do. Steve is going to explain the situation to the public and help them understand about what is going on. There are actually 2 resolutions that have to be adopted this evening, one of them by the city council, and then one of them by the MDA, which is a management group that manages the buildings within the city, which happens to also be you, but under a different hat. So Steve, will you bring us up to date on the public of what we're talking about here and where we're going?
Sure. So we got wind the interest rates have been dropping with this market. And so reached out to our financial advisors at Zions Bank. And we started the process of going through a refinance bid. We put that bid out last week. And in your packet, you'll see 3 bids from 3 different companies. We're looking at doing a direct purchase again. What we found is that these 3 bids are not favorable to take advantage of. Our current rate is 1.9% on our bonds. And so my recommendation would be to reject these bids with the caveat that we still pass the resolutions. And I say that because in this market that we're in, it might present an opportunity in the near future or even a couple months out where we could act fairly quickly and get a rate subsequent to this bid. So we're going to recommend passing these resolutions And then kind of sitting and waiting and see what happens with the market. And also to see if there are any subsequent bids that may come in. We're going to invite financial banks and things to invite them to bid at a later date if they find to be more competitive in the market.
Is that understandable?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Lisa, do you want to lead us out in this discussion? And then what we
Yeah.
will need is a motion eventually to adopt the resolution by the council. And then because we wear two hats, we're going to recess for a minute, go to the MDA meeting, to adopt its agenda, and then approve the resolution wearing that hat too.
Hey, Mayor, I also have Jonathan Ward is on the Zoom meeting. I just unmuted him. I didn't know if he wanted to add anything. He is our financial advisor at Zions Bank.
Yes, that would be fine.
I don't know if
Scott,
he
are you
wanted to
there?
add.
The only thing I'd add, Mayor, is that the municipal bond market has seen some pretty wild swings up and down over the last month. So we're coming back down to where we were a month ago, but our bid basically came at a bad time. I like Steve's recommendation and thought to postpone any award of bonds. Right now, we don't even have a good bid that would justify the transaction. But if the rates continue to drop and the market settle down a little bit better, we might have a different option for the city.
Thank you, John. Lisa, would
Okay.
you like
So
to?
we had discussed this in our last meeting, or maybe it was 20 years ago. I'm not sure about time anymore, but we discussed jumping on a lowered bond interest rate so that we could save. I think we came up with around $25,000 a year. It would save us over the course of, I think, 8 years. Is that about where we were? It seems like that was the discussion. So I think obviously the recommendation is not to accept the bid right now because it isn't back where what the discussion was. But I think it would be wise to have it at an approval stage so that when it does get to to the right point, that we can jump on it before it lifts again. I think just as we've been informed, it's a volatile market right now, and maybe it's not all the time, but I think anytime we can save funds, especially such a large amount, it may not be enormous, but it sure makes a dent in things. So I think it would be wise to approve it as soon as it comes back down again, so we don't have to wait and call meetings and run the risk of it increasing again.
Okay. Any other discussion, council? You all feel basically the same way? You just give me a
Yes,
nod.
sir.
Yeah, I'd entertain a motion then on that resolution.
Okay,
I make a motion that we authorize approving the master lease agreement pending a rate that is favorable.
I'll second that.
Would you mention the resolution number R20-12?
Yes, in our resolution number R20-12.
And I heard a second from Jordan.
Correct.
Greg,
Do we need to mention rejecting the current bids or not?
Steve, what do you?
Doesn't pending a favorable rate cover that?
Yeah.
It would for me. I'm just checking.
Okay.
Do we want to time bound it at all?
Well, originally, didn't he say something about it in the paperwork? It says like 6 months up to a year or something like that. I hate to, well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I want to untie their hands, but not for eternity, but also, because we need to discuss this kind of thing. But once again, if it comes up in the next year and we've only given a 6-month period of time, that is ineffective for us. So do we just want to untie hands and say, do we want to give a certain amount that it needs to drop below before we'll consider it, or what do you think?
Mr. Mayor, I withdraw my motion.
Withdraw?
Oh, it was a good motion.
Sounds like we need some discussion. Okay.
I think the only thing that, as long as it's financially favorable, then it's worth doing. Because a lot of times, even though it drops a little bit, it's still not financially favorable because you end up having to pay for the refinance, at least in the world of home ownership. So, and
Closing.
also for how long you have left, sometimes it's not worth it.
Mhm.
Steve, can you and John weigh in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have John weigh in a little bit more, but there is a sweet spot. There is an evaluation that they do that it has to meet a certain threshold, else it's not recommended to refinance. Even if you save a few $1,000s, it's just not financially, it doesn't make sense. And so I'm gonna let Jonathan talk a little bit more about that threshold and when to pull the trigger.
Yeah, consider that the bonds that are currently outstanding bear an interest rate of 1.9%. That's very low. But as was mentioned, there is a law of diminishing returns. And as the bond life shortens from 8 years to 7 to 6 to 5, it becomes more and more difficult to produce any differential in interest rates and savings to justify it. In our industry, we try to refinance if the savings expressed as a percentage of the bonds refinanced equals 3% or more. And if it doesn't, then we usually won't pull the trigger. So as the staff asked us to look at the interest rates and said, you know, could we produce 3% savings, meaning our savings amount is 3% of the bond principal amount? We said, well, maybe we could, maybe we can't. I mean, we're talking about a very low starting point at a 1.9%. But if we got to a point where we could justify, meaning the savings was 3% of the refunded principal amount, we would come back to the city and say, yeah, this is a worthy or justified refinance. In addition, to answer the question about sort of the time constraint on the resolution, the bond attorneys have already sort of given us a 1-year mark. They say that the resolution has a shelf life of a year. So if you were to approve the resolution, both as a city council and the building authority tonight, that gives us a year at most under the bond attorney's interpretation of the law. They'd want us to do this again a year from now. You as a council can certainly constrain that to 6 months or 7 months or 8 months if you choose, but it's not going to go beyond a year.
I say we limit it to a year then.
Dave, you want to take a Dave, do you want to take a swing at that again?
I think that the motion covered that, but I'm just going to leave that. Somebody else can take a shot at it.
Well, I wanted a couple things into this. I do want to still have some oversight in that as we go forward, and let's say we approve this tonight, I do still want to at least have a notification that something is occurring rather than just be like, guess what we did yesterday? And we're like, oh, thanks.
We won't do anything without notifying you guys beforehand. We wouldn't pull the trigger.
The great thing about this though is if it's financially beneficial to the city, then it's a good deal no matter what for all of us. So
And I agree. I think we should make this a standing item that anytime we can get a really good rate on something that we are financing, we should just always have this as a potential option, because sometimes rates only last hours, sometimes a couple days. And if we have to wait 2 weeks for a meeting, we've missed an opportunity. So I think this is a no-brainer, and I think we ought to do this in perpetuity, but have it a rolling approval, said, hey, yes, we would like to, in the event of something amazing coming up, we go forward and do these type of refinances. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we pass resolution R20-12 under the conditions of it is favorable to the city in that we are saving, I guess, sounds like 3% is the minimum where it's worth it. I'd hate to spend staff hours on something that actually ends up costing us more. So let's shoot for 3% as a basic rule of thumb and go for that approval for the time frame specified. Sounds like it's about a year, and in a year we should renew this this approval on our ongoing financing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Lisa. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
I
Aye.
That seems to be unanimous. Cassie, would you record that? Now, council, I'm going to call a recess in our business meeting and let's go to our MBA meeting.
Actually, Mayor,
Yes.
Brody has indicated that there's not a need to hold a closed session tonight.
Yes.
And so you can go ahead and call for that meeting to adjourn, and we can just move to MBA and then work session agendas.
Call for this meeting to adjourn.
So if you wanted to have your last set of public comments and then adjourn from city council, and then we
Alright.
can go on to the other agendas.
I'm smart enough to take counsel. Let's do that. We've satisfied item 6, but we still have that item as the MBA authority, and the city will come back to that. We're at item 7. We will reopen this to public comment for those of you who would like to respond that are connected through Zoom. If you would raise your hand, there's a purple hand you can raise. Cassie, I see none.
Yeah, I don't see any raised
Okay,
hands.
I will close public comment then. How about council announcements? Let's start with Seth. Seth, do you have anything for this group?
Not really particular. I did talk with Cook Elementary this week and just kind of checking in with them, and they're just kind of expressing the great work that their teachers are doing, working extra hours and putting in all that extra work to make sure our kids are still well educated. One thing they did say that was kind of interesting was they're handing out about 230 lunches and breakfasts per day out to the students just in Cook Elementary. So that's pretty amazing. So I just kind of want to remind us to be mindful of those around us, especially our kids as they're going through this. A lot of times we think about how difficult this is on us, but it's difficult on the youth in our community as well.
Yeah. My granddaughter cried today when she realized she wouldn't be going back to school.
Oh,
That's sad. Jordan, do you have anything for us?
Not a lot. We did do a CERT call out in that it was an informational call out where we just sent an email out to the CERT people. The county has asked for a survey to see who would be willing to help pass out some supplies that they are getting. So we sent that out and I've got a good response back. So we might be calling on CERT members to, I think it's like 2-hour shifts, and the county would provide all the PPE to be able to do some supply sorting and just distribution. But other than that, there's not a whole lot going on right now. Just, yeah, big thank you to all those people out there keeping things moving, and all the frontline workers and essential personnel that are out there keeping us safe.
Thank you, Jordan. David?
Just FYI that we have held special district meetings for the sewer district. That went off successfully. The Arts Council held auditions for the summer musical via video submission. I will let you, they're still hopeful that that will be possible, but are very aware that we are pending the outcome of how things go. And met with Syracuse, or talked with, didn't meet with, Syracuse High, and regretfully they are following the council of the school district, and there will not be school, which I do feel for those seniors. It's not one of my children that falls into that category, but there's a great sense of incompletion for some of them, and we need to be mindful of what we can do to help them.
Thank you. David, I received a resignation today from the Arts Council from James Parker. Were you aware?
Yes, I was aware of that. James has been great to work with. Just so the rest of the council understands, he has just accepted an opportunity to move out of state. So he has served as the secretary for the last year. He has been a great addition to the board, but as he's moving, he won't be able to continue.
Thank you, David. Lisa?
Yes, so I took your advice when you asked us to take certain parts in the community as council members. And one of the things you suggested was to kind of reach out to community members who might be struggling with some of the same things that we are. And so I wrote a couple of blogs specific to what it's like to have a child come home from a mission early, and just kind of the COVID impact. And so I did a couple of those this last week, and I am the point of contact for the Communities That Care, an outreach we're going to do that is banners and yard signs for all of our graduating seniors. We just realized what it's a devastating disappointment for a lot of these kids to have gone to school one day and then the next day have the rest of their year gone, and proms and graduation exercises and all of those things just disappeared overnight. And so we wanted to reach out and let them know that the community is very mindful of what they're going through. So we were able to get funding from the state, which was a wonderful thing. And we're going to start this year and have it be we'd like it to be a tradition every year, where they can come to the city halls of Clearfield and Syracuse to a pickup point and a drop-off point and pick up yard signs. And we'll have a couple of banners that we'll display as well that just say, congratulations to our seniors, or we're proud of you, we're having it bid right now. And whoever has a senior in their life can come and pick up a sign, even if it's just somebody in their neighborhood that they want to congratulate. They can put it in their yard or wherever they'd like it to be. And we'll have about a 3-week period of time that they can pick them up, display them, and then bring them back. And then we know we'll lose some along the way, but we'll start with a good number, and then we can always replenish before the next year returns. And we won't be having it be specific colors for a school. It'll just be a general congratulations and we see you. So that's something that we're going to be working on. And then Corinne and I are working on some Memorial Day celebration, just working on the Memorial Day celebration for the city. So, and I know she has a lot more to do with that. I'm just doing a little bit here and there for her. So those are just a few of the things we're working on.
Thank you, Lisa. Corinne.
Okay, I'll start with the Memorial Day ceremony. It's going to be on the 25th, and our plan is to do it as a FaceTime event so that people can participate electronically, and then have people come to do the presentation and then, you know, at the podium or whatever, and then back to their car. So, and we still would like to do it at the Syracuse Cemetery. We're possibly going to ask the mayor to host still. I'm not sure what your feelings on that would be. So consider that, Mayor. And as far as being a host, and I don't know if you have health concerns that we need to be extra worried about, but we will anyway. So, but we have everything, pretty much everything else set up. I do need to contact Cresta for some of those small last minute things, because it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do this in person. So more like for sound equipment and the flags, just as a backdrop. And then I just wanted to mention that the illumination event that CTC is doing has been moved to September 1st. That's a Tuesday evening, starting at 6 o'clock. It'll be at Snyder's Bluff. We, anyway, again, because of COVID and all, we decided we needed to move it back. We figured September 1st would still be warm enough to take advantage of the warm weather being an outside event and all. And just to give you a heads up that has been moved. Then the last thing, it was just, I haven't been able to get a hold of the principal yet from Buffalo Point, but I will be underway with that. Hopefully I can get that done. And you got my mosquito abatement report today. Sorry that was delayed.
Hey, Corinne, as
Yeah.
part of that Illuminary event, what is involved in that?
The illumination event is addressing prevention for those 3 things that we have identified through the what was the name of that testing
Sharp.
that they did?
Sharp.
Sorry.
Sharp.
Yes, the SHARP surveys from both the Clearfield High and Syracuse High. So it's prevention of vaping, 2 or more weeks of feeling depressed or down in some way, and watching for the signs and symptoms of that, and also prevention from getting into that situation to begin with. And then third, of course, suicide prevention. But all of our presentations there, we're going to have several booths addressing it and giving out information, are all going to be on a positive light and prevention light, rather than, dealing with the trauma, for instance, afterward or something. We do have resources there, but we want this to be from the prevention side. We're also going to be
the lanterns, right? Where you light lanterns and put them up in the sky.
no.
Okay, I know
No.
we did that last year, and I wasn't sure if this was correlated.
No, and then we're also going to have an entertainer there. We're getting a comedian, and at least was the plan. I'm not sure exactly if that's all been settled, but the idea is to have people also speaking about it too. And we are going to have several from the community, hopefully, if this has all gone away, doing presentations and showing things like, for instance, yoga for children. One gal is going to show a demonstration on that, and that's just how getting children to move, and even if they have to stay indoors, that there's things that they can do to stay healthier in their mind, and mindfulness and exercises and such. So, and along with that, we're going to have food trucks, and all of it ending in a big fireworks display that evening. So it should be good. And West Point decided that they wanted to pitch in they've noticed they've been on the outside of this, and they wanted to participate more. So that's why it's the Snyders.
Thank you.
You bet.
I only have one thing, and I've shared it with the council, but would like to share it with the residents that are out there. The landfill, Wasatch Integrated Waste, went through a battle of limited closure and then total closure. And today was the first day that they were open for all comers, Davis County residents. They weren't taking special waste from outside of the county, which they normally do, for which those residents are charged more. But the landfill opened this morning for all comers, and that's a relief. That I was lobbying hard Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and the announcement finally came Saturday night late. So, Brody, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything for this group?
Just the manager's report was sent out earlier, so let me know if you have any problems getting into that, if you have any questions on that. As far as the COVID emergency management, I just want to recognize that an operational period that we've set is 1 week at a time, and the management of the emergency, we're rotating between me, Paul, and Garrett. So they've been great at kind of helping out so that we can kind of all juggle our workload and that each week. So I want to thank them for doing that. But I don't have any other updates.
Okay.
Oh, well, I should say, so as far as the city is concerned, we do have 18 confirmed cases in the city. About 5 of them are what's called community acquired, which kind of means we don't know where it came from. So just be aware it is in the community. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, we're not exempt. We're not exempt. The council, seeing no need to reconvene in a closed session, I'd take a motion to adjourn from our business meeting.
So moved.
A motion by Lisa, the second.
I'll second that.
Second by Corinne. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Now, council, I'd like to redirect us back to the MDA and excuse me, our MDA meeting. There is an agenda for that one. I will call that to order and ask for a motion to adopt its agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion from David. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Corinne. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're now in session with an adopted agenda. Item number 2, as it was discussed earlier, and as we understand now, because the council wears 2 hats, one that approves policy, and then one that manages actually the physical facilities that the city owns. We need to adopt that MBA resolution, MBA 20-01. Is there any further discussion of that action? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll take a crack at it.
Yeah.
Mayor, I make the motion that we approve. Do I still need to put in the resolution?
The resolution number needs to be in there, MBA 20-1.
MBA R20-1, pardon me. Accepting the financial bond savings as they come to fruition in the future 12 months.
Okay. You good with that, Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
Does,
Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second by Lisa. Any further discussion?
does this one have to say that we reject the current rates because this is the MBA meeting?
Good question.
I'm not sure. Maybe that's my understanding from the last meeting was that this one would have to mention that.
John, can you advise us?
I don't think it needs to be an official action of the council. We can reject on behalf of the city and tell all the investors, thanks, we're not taking any of the bids and be just fine.
Okay.
Okay,
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, that appears to be unanimous. And entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dave and one from Jordan to second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, that is unanimous. Now let's go to the work session. And I will call that meeting to order, and we are met tonight to hear a little bit in the work session from the museum board. Brody and Corinne, you are the top doggers there. Who wants to get out here?
I can lead out. Oh,
That'd be great, since I've only been to one meeting, so please go. COVID kind of shut me down, so go for it.
Yeah, so you've seen the cover memo in the packet. The only thing I'll add to that is, if you recall, some of you may recall, we did a 5-year plan. The museum did a 5-year plan and submitted that to the council for approval, and which kind of set kind of a long-term view of where they're headed. And this year, Dean Hill, he's the chair of the Museum Foundation, and along with our staff, our excellent staff, Annie Balmer, she's here as well. And they wanted to present to you some of the information of what they've been up to, and also some of the issues that they're dealing with. If there are any budgetary impacts to this, what we figured we'd do is take whatever comes about in this discussion, and we can incorporate that into our discussion on Friday. So with that, I was going to turn the time over to Dean and Annie, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes.
Okay,
Do we
thank
need
you, sir.
to give them ability to, oh, there they are. Okay.
Hi.
Do you need to see, do you need to share your screen, or what do you need to do?
Yeah, I'll pull up our PowerPoint.
Okay.
While she's pulling that up, thank you very much. Appreciate this. And we've been extremely busy while the museum's been closed down. It's given us a chance to really get our goals and agenda going forward. And I think you'll see some of the things that's happened here. So to start off with, I want to talk about a little bit about some of the accomplishments that's happened in the last little while here at the museum. Annie and I went out to Antelope Island. We met with the ranger out there, and we have a collaboration going forward with Antelope Island in the fact that we are taking banners out there, brochures out there, and they will post them at all the facilities they have out there advertising the museum. Also, whenever they have an activity out there, they're going to include the museum, invite us to be a part of all the activities that go on out there. We see Antelope Island as a very good partner in the fact that it's the most visited state park in the state of Utah with over 500,000 visitors every year. And so we're very excited to be able to do this. We're going to go back and forth. Annie?
So the museum in the last 6 months has had, yeah, I can see we have had 2 different community events. Our first one was kind of our Halloween event. It was called Night at the Museum, where we hired actors to portray different early Syracuse settlers. And as visitors walked around the museum, these actors were able to tell the story of these key Syracuse people. To that event, we had over 200 visitors. Our second event was our Midwinter Festival, which included hay rides, crafts, face painting, excuse me, and different games. With this event, we had over 250 visitors come. We've also started a Facebook web series. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that so far. If you haven't, please check out our Facebook page at
awesome.
facebook.com/Syracuse Museum. With these videos, they were a response with the national call to museums to create content that visitors could view as the museums were closing down. So every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I post a new video highlighting a different artifact or story in Syracuse. With these videos, in the past 3 weeks, we've had over 6,000 views, which is an exponential increase of what the page has had before. And we've had over 50 new likes because of these videos. And if you haven't seen them, here's just like a 10-second snippet of what they are. Hi everyone, it's Annie again. Welcome to today's episode of Artifacts at Home. Ever since people began settling in the area of Syracuse, baseball has been a favorite pastime. So that's basically what the videos are. Every time it's a different object or story that highlights the history of Syracuse.
And if I can just add to that, Hill Air Force Base Museum and several others have contacted us and Annie about how do you do those? They want to start doing that too, so that they can be a part of it. So that all started here, and I guess we have to hand all of that to Annie. Thank you, Annie. It's wonderful. We also been working, we got a grant from UDOT. They came in and wanted us to do all this history for them before they started tearing houses down. I said, we're not going to do it for free. Basically, they've come up with $8,000 that they are going to give us. It's in the bag. It's just a matter of getting it transferred with everything going on. With that money, we're going to use it in the museum for repairs, for renovation, for displays, and for educational programming. And so we're very excited to have that money, no strings attached. It'll go to the city and then we'll draw it from the city. Okay, Annie.
Along with the educational programming, I've kind of been working on some programs to get together for when the museum is able to reopen. Our first one is our Junior Curator Activity Guide, and it's kind of like the Junior Ranger program that the national parks do. So this book will be an activity-based learning guide to take kids and other people throughout the museum. Each page has a different activity that relates to Syracuse history and a different exhibit that they'll get to view. And when they're finished with the book, they get to turn it in and they get a little junior curator badge that they can wear around. And we're going to use some of the grant money in order to purchase those. Another program that I'm working on, we applied for a grant from the Utah Division of Arts and Museums to create a citywide historical scavenger hunt that will include signs put at different historically significant spots throughout the city. And linked to that will be an app that people can download and use on their phone. And it will have trivia and information about these different historical sites. That project will hopefully begin in July 2020 and be up and running by spring 2021 at the latest.
Okay, we're going to have time for questions in just a few minutes, if you'll bear with us. Some of the goals we have at Syracuse is to really put Syracuse on the map as the gateway to Antelope Island. Syracuse has the potential of becoming a major tourism spot because of its location, the geography, and the history that is here in this area. We're preparing for a very large influx of people. As this new edifice is going to be built in Syracuse, we expect to see a tenfold increase in visitors coming. And as they finish whatever they're doing at the temple, being able to go to a museum or some other things, do the scavenger hunt, we see that as very, very good potential for the museum and for the people of Syracuse. Another thing we're working on is topic and curriculum specific tours. As you all remember, maybe when you were in 4th grade, you studied Utah history. The museum can create a program for tours that coincide with the curriculum of the state of Utah. And we're looking to have the 4th grade classes from throughout the state come to the museum and see what we have to offer here. So I think we really have the potential to do that.
One of the things that I've really been working on since I started working here at the museum is increasing our community involvement. More often than not, I run into Syracuse residents who haven't even heard of the museum and have no idea that we're here. And that's really an image that I'd like to change, because I feel like the museum could really become a staple key point in the community. And by doing more community events and more educational programming, getting us out into the schools and out into the public, we can hopefully get more people to realize that we're here and secure returning visitors. We're also working on getting an increased number of volunteers and interns. Earlier this evening, we had the opportunity to meet with some people to establish a service mission to get some full-time missionaries here at the museum to help us out with different projects that can further the museum's growth. And we want to continue getting people like that to make this museum a really big repository for information.
Okay, I'd like to just do a little quick museum comparison. If we look at Syracuse Museum and a population of roughly 25,000 people, we have a part-time curator 10 hours a week. If we compare that with Helper City, who has a population of just over 2,000 people, they have one full-time curator. Hiram City, population 8,500, has 1.5 full-time people. Brigham City Museum, which is an overkill, and it's a lousy museum compared to ours, they have 3 full-time people and a part-time employee. Green River City, population 900, I don't know what they do. They must promote their watermelons, but they have 3 full-time employees down there. If we compare ourselves, and one I like to do, because Syracuse being the gateway to Antelope Island, the big draw is bringing people here, going to Antelope Island. If you compare it with Springville City down in Springville, their whole claim to fame is their arts museum that they have once a year that draws people from all over the state for that. And we feel we can do the same thing here with Syracuse, drawing people from all over the state to help boost the image and economy of Syracuse. Okay, I'm going to ask Annie to leave the room for just a minute, if that's okay, because I want to talk about her. And then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit more. Annie is our curator. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology, emphasis in medieval Irish archaeology. She's working on her master's degree right now at Harvard. She's carrying a 4.0 there. It's online. She was going to go back for about 1.5 months this summer, but that's all put on hold because of the virus going on. But she is tremendous. She's had 4 years museum experience. When we went down to the state of Utah in March, we went to the Capitol, and several museums were displaying what they had down there for the legislators to see what was going on. Without a doubt, we had the best display down there. And we had several people from other large museums like Hill Air Force Base and Dugway and some of those hitting on her, not because she's cute, but because of things that she's able to do. They all recognize the ability that Annie has. And we're not trying to toot her horn more than necessary, but we need to do something more than have 10 hours a week with Annie, or I'm afraid someone else might get that very good asset that we have. It's very hard to find a who, and then you can find a what. You can always find a what, but it's hard to find a who. And believe me, we've got the who's who right now. The museum is a necessary source for keeping the city history alive. If you remember those little snippets that she does, she recognized 4 different people, 4 different families, or 3 in Syracuse. Edwin Gailey talking about the bullet that he pulled out of his leg by himself in World War I. Lawrence Briggs brought the first fire engine to Syracuse, and George Fisher was really the start of baseball in the area. we have right now over 44 books with over 10 families in each book that all have a story to tell like that. And so that's what we want to tell. We want to get out. We want people to know about Syracuse and the museum. My grandfather grew up in Syracuse. My dad grew up in Syracuse. I live in Clinton, but that's the reason I'm here, is to help remember that heritage. Okay, I'm going to ask Annie to come back, and maybe you put it where we can see him, and if there's any questions. Are there any questions for Annie?
I don't have any. I just want to tell you how great your little 1.5-minute snippets are. As soon as I started to see them, I'd share them. And there were always comments from people, you know, like, what was it, 11 kids in 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom home or something. And I'm like, we can't complain about this quarantine.
Nope.
Because those people, but it's fantastic. And you hit the nail on the head with how much time people are willing to look at something online. You really only have about 1.5 minutes to capture their attention before they think, oh, that's too long, and they'll skim past it. So great job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I had no idea there were so many different types of barbed wire. That really impressed me. and I think Lisa's right. My kids, as they've kind of watched some of the videos, they don't learn enough quite to be experts at anything. But when they see the snippets, they go, well, tell me more about that. I'm like, I have no idea about this stuff. We'd have to go to the museum to figure it out. So thanks for doing that. Those are awesome.
For watching them.
Thank you for your energy and your innovation that you're bringing there. I know that it's been needed, and just the last time, the one time we had a meeting with me, Ernie Field, he volunteers there, and he took me around the museum, and I was amazed at how much larger it was than when we first moved here. And I'm very, very impressed with the collection and that it's growing. And thank you for your great job that you're doing with archiving all of it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I really enjoy them too. You're doing a phenomenal job, and we are lucky to have you there. So keep up the amazing work. Everyone involved there. We've had amazing people that have always been putting in time there. And Annie, you're in good company, and we are so lucky to have you and all of the museum curators that we have there.
Thanks. They are a great team. We have some amazing volunteers. It's been really sad not having them in here with me. I've kind of been lonely without them.
Resta, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've had the privilege to interact with Annie and Dean, but Annie is incredible at what she does. And we knew that from the moment we interviewed her, that she would do a great job, and she just surpassed everything that any of us expected her to do. And I have to say what Dean will say is that she will get snagged up by somebody if we don't do something for her. So that's all I just wanted to add.
Thanks.
Thank you both.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you. And we appreciate all of the support we get. Every time we ask for something from the city, you guys are very, very helpful and on the spot without complaint. Everybody. So thanks very much. And
Thank you so much. We'll do all we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll sign off now then.
Or you can stay and be entertained.
Woohoo!
Thanks for setting it all up, Brody. We appreciate you setting everything up for us.
Yeah, thank you, Brody. Have a good night.
Council, we're at item C, to continue review of the city code section 10.92 pertaining to mixed use. Noah, do you want to give us a little lead in? And then we've budgeted an hour for this discussion. What I would hope that after that hour is that we have something substantial that we can refer this back to the Planning Commission with some recommendations.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
This, what you see in the packet is my attempt to listen to our many discussions we've had on the topic. So if I've missed the ball here, just let me know. Let's have a discussion. This is obviously a draft. The black text is what is existing. Then the red text is what would be new. So we had a lot of discussion about
the commercial component. And the idea that Brody brought up seemed to really resonate, of allowing a project to partner with a developer that it's within a quarter mile. Is the distance that we came up with. So the language in here just kind of it attempts to explain what kind of qualifiers we want to see, and what we define as counting as commercial. I don't know if you want me to go through it or not. I'm assuming you guys have read this. But this section here is all talking about the partnership option. So you have to be a quarter mile. It has to, so all or a portion of the required commercial could be on the partner site. And then really clarifying what we mean by when we say commercial square footage. It's got to have its own utility connections. It's got to have its own parking near the entrance. It's got to have a separate entrance and a restroom. You know, I think it was Dave that was always saying that some of the live work units that aren't really designed to be separate, actual true, quote, true commercial didn't really count. So we're trying to just define that as saying, okay, if whatever this required commercial amount is, this is what we're talking about. And sometimes when we say commercial, people just think retail, but it could be office, medical, office, assisted living, retail, or another use deemed beneficial by the city. But we don't mean industrial. You can't build storage units and say it's mixed use. And then just clarifying, like we're talking about internal gross square footage here. We're not talking about storage area or, you know, kind of these outdoor areas that could potentially inflate their number if they're a little low. So we want to make sure that there's a good valiant effort. Let me just go through the rest of them. The next one that we talked a lot about is the building height, and making sure that there's tying the allowed height to the amount of commercial that's provided. Remember, we used to have units per units of residential, but we changed that to square feet of residential. So if you have 12, you can go 1 story if you have 12 per 1,000 square feet of residential. So I asked both of our applicants kind of what the average square footage of a unit is, and the 1 bedroom will be less than 1,000, but the 2 and 3 bedroom will be more. Two is probably closer to the 1,000. So they, you know, the easiest way to do this was to just average out a unit is about 1,000 square feet. So it's roughly proportionate, but we want, and I think from last time I even increased this number. So if you are trying to go 3-story, you really got to have a good amount of commercial. So 36 square feet of commercial. So if you remember kind of the ratios of stuff that used to be in packets of the past, you know, like a grocery store is 50,000 square feet. So we can't expect them to build a Costco with 50 units of residential, so forth. But this right here will yield roughly the size of a Dollar Tree or something in a good sized residential project. And then we talked about this number of feet from, it used to say adjacent, and that was confusing to everybody. So we said 85 feet because that's roughly the distance of a front yard and a road and something across the street. So you're no longer, you know, you're adjacent if you're within, you know, that distance. And one thing, I don't want this to cause confusion, but so tell me if you don't like this. And I think it was in one of the options that we discussed before, but I don't think we had a lot of conversation about it, is before it just said single family. But given the reaction that we've received by some of the neighbors, like the 1-story duplexes or triplex, the scale of them a lot of times are not very compatible next to a 3-story apartment complex. And so adding those types of uses, like for example, this would encompass the Sunset Park villas. You know, they're 1-story attached. So if you felt like that was going too far, you know, we can talk about it and not do that. But both of our current proposals, the way they've organized their parking and some of their open space, either way, they could still accommodate this. I think one of them might, and I know that we're not specifically talking about this, but because this will affect everybody. And then this bonus height stuff, we've already got the ratio of the amount of commercial here, so we got rid of this bonus height. So you can go up to 40 feet. And then if you have, this didn't change, but it's just trying to clarify it. I thought that language was a little confusing. So you can go up to 45 feet if it's a little decorative feature like a parapet or something like that. But generally speaking, you need 40 feet for a 3-story building. This is new, but this is in relationship to the 1/4 mile of our partner sites that we talked about, having some of the commercial be located within the partner sites. So just to be consistent with the other number that we use, this right here is talking about under which circumstances would we allow a building that's entirely residential. So the idea is that if you have a residential building that's too far from a commercial area, then you should probably start a new commercial area, your own node, right? Because we really want to strategically place these rooftops next to the commercial so that they can help with those commercial buildings and supporting those commercial businesses. So if they're too far away, then you kind of lose that connection there. So that's why there's a number of feet that they're supposed to be with, you know, to the existing retail. But this just changes it to 800 to 1320 because the partner sites can be within 1320. 1320 is a 1/4 mile. And then we talked about this a long time ago. Before if you had a building along the frontage, it had to have some sort of commercial in it. So this allows the development to be more of a horizontal rather than requiring every building along a frontage to have a vertical mixed use, because that was really spreading out all of the commercial into those weird live work units. So this kind of allows them to group it into a commercial part of the development. They can still mix it in where it's appropriate, but this taking that out, I think that's kind of that's been consensus for a while. And I believe that is it. So we're hoping that we're getting closer and refining what our conversation's been. Hopefully I didn't throw any curveballs or anything here. I'm trying to listen to what the conversation's been.
Okay, Jordan, would you lead us out in a discussion? I'm going to allow free discussion here.
Sure. I've been using a space bar mute, but now that we're in discussion time, I'll just leave it open. I was trying to find, and I should have looked at this earlier as we were going through and looking at a lot of this stuff. So I can't find it specifically where we say, look, you're allowed to pull. What I want to see, let me organize my thoughts. And all of this, what I'm looking for is, I do like where most of the time we have these roads, these buildings adjacent to a sidewalk. They're very we want to remain as walkable as possible. But I want them to be able to pull off of the sidewalk in the event of a drive-through. Is that covered in here, Noah?
there's the front setback standards in here.
Help me see where that is.
So front yard setback is 20 feet minimum, 40 feet maximum. So you could easily accommodate a drive-through. There's nothing in here that says you can't have a drive-through. So say if they had a fast food restaurant, they could easily build that. There are architectural standards that say that, you know, they have to make it look a certain way. But yeah, there's nothing that says that they couldn't do a drive-through with the window here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly if that fit it, but if that's, let's see. Okay. I actually think I like this verbiage a lot more than the ones we've seen in the past. I like that we have tied the density to the commercial impact. It kind of made it not quite so free form, but at the same time, it did kind of set some minimum standards that we're looking for. So other than that, I really don't have a lot of comments on this. I think you've done a good job, Noah.
Others?
I have a couple of concerns. Go ahead, Corinne.
Okay, this is just one sentence on C section, the part that's right there on the screen, and C4A. There's just that one sentence about the industrial that's not a real sentence. So it's actually in the next paragraph where it says,
there's 2 A's.
oh,
That would be a
okay. B then.
The second A, the double parenthesis to A.
A22, something like that. Anyway, industrial uses like warehousing or storage units are not, however, are not what. So that's, I mean, we just need to finish that sentence.
The previous says it's considered to be commercial, industrial, and storage units are not. So you got to take the however off.
Just put are
or
not.
Or just put a comma after
Are not
commercial.
commercial.
And remove the however at the
And
end.
the however doesn't make any sense sentence-wise.
Yeah, you could just put are not commercial, are not considered commercial, period.
You can't end a sentence with however.
So we're
No.
saying industrial is not commercial.
Yes.
There
I
eternally.
thought that was
Or
obvious.
if we could just say industrial, but we want this to be very clear. So industrial uses
Yeah.
like warehousing or storage units are not applicable or are not allowed. Maybe even
Acceptable.
acceptable is fine.
Okay. I can fix that.
Okay,
Catch.
that was all. That's all I have right there. And I really like the other changes that you proposed. Thank you.
David?
Welcome.
So my first concern is, I believe that when you're phrasing the acceptance of improving property that is not adjoining the, that's within a quarter mile, I thought we agreed that it couldn't be entirely off the site.
No, I don't think that we.
My concern would be this, that if you're improving the property to count as your commercial, somehow we have to be able to document that in city records so that somebody doesn't come back later and say that property was already developed or this doesn't count. We have to figure out some way to document the tie. And I'm not sure that that's document that it only qualifies as mixed use because of. Without that, I think we open ourselves up to somebody trying to say that we're allowing
An all residential.
yeah, an all residential. And I know the zone doesn't say that, but I'm concerned that we have to figure out a way to document that.
I thought that would be part of the plat. As the plat is submitted, it would say, here's our residential and here's our commercial, and you agree to both of them at the same time.
So
There's also in section
There was
4,
also writing somewhere that said that they had to prove there's a direct link between the two. And that
Yeah,
there's,
and that's so I guess my point is this is very unclear to me. The way that it reads, it leads
In
me to
section-
believe there are more options than I think we believe there are.
In section 4, there is a statement in there that's saying they need to build a new building.
Yeah.
So that's pretty clear.
We'll also
I
have.
guess the point being, if it's, okay, so we talked about, let's say that they develop something that's already in a developed area, but maybe has an undeveloped pad. How do we link the two in, how do we make sure that future developments don't say, well, they didn't do any of this when they clearly did? I don't, try to figure out how to link this.
Well,
So you could, go ahead, Mayor.
Wouldn't the development agreement attest to that, which would always be tied to this development?
Yeah, it would have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
The way that it comes across to me is it makes it look like we're going to accept just residential developments as the new development if they improve some other property.
And you know, we could add a sentence to strengthen that. It says the commercial component of this option must be completed before the first residential unit receives final occupancy. So if they are pointing to some other property, they can't just say, yeah, someday something over there will happen.
Yeah.
So they will be, you know, they can't actually occupy the property until what they say is going to happen on the other commercial property happens.
So do you want to amend that sentence to say receives final occupancy? Let's see, the commercial component of this option must be completed before the first residential unit receives final occupancy and is documented in the development agreement or somewhere along there. If you want to make it formally part of the development agreement, I think this is the place to put it in, somewhere in this area.
Good idea. Whatever you guys think.
I'm worried about loose ends. And that's my entire concern here, is that we leave things in a place where we could interpret other ways to go around this.
No, I appreciate you guys' help because this is a complicated ordinance, and so there could be loose ends. So it's good that we're all paying attention and reviewing it.
So what happens then on that last sentence if something falls through and we're not allowing occupancy to take place? If it was just some sort of exigent circumstances that were completely out of control, and they built out and they're ready for final occupancy, what happens in that scenario?
And that's something I'm really concerned about, because when it goes to the next step, let's say that everything's in place, the inspector goes and inspects the building, and I don't know that they can go, I mean, maybe I don't know their job well enough, because maybe they do this, but do they really go back to the development agreement before they sign over that occupancy? Or do they just say this new building meets code? There've been times when it wasn't clear, and even businesses have opened before they really had occupancy. We have to be overly clear here.
Yeah, well, that happened here in Syracuse just a few years ago.
That's why I bring it up.
Okay. Along with these thoughts here, when we're discussing commercial, if you look at section, let's see, it's F9. It says here, buildings which are entirely commercial are permitted only if the following apply. And A says that they need to be a multi-tenant building. I think if we are wanting a large enough commercial building entity in itself, that it can't be multi-tenant necessarily. I think that needs to be stricken.
Now, whatever you guys think, back to real quick, back on the final inspection.
Yeah.
Say that the building official, Brian, anytime we have a commercial structure, there's a yellow card that the contractor has to get signed from planning, engineering, and fire. So he won't issue final occupancy until planning signs off on it.
Okay.
So that'll give us a chance to review it, make sure. But sometimes there are very detailed things that we have to make sure.
We have had in the past some people start to occupy without permits. So that's where I'm concerned.
That's
So
tricky.
does that mean final occupancy on the, so like, let's say there's a 2-part residential commercial building, the residential pieces go, the commercial piece falls apart last minute or something changes, the final occupancy does not get approved for the residential
Yeah,
piece.
it would. I think we're just basically saying that we mean business, but if somebody builds a whole residential complex and then it's just sitting there, they're gonna have to make it happen, whatever they've committed to.
And then we would
I'm
just
wondering
sit
how we can stop them once they've built it if they don't build the other part.
Well, it's by development agreement. They would have to.
Yeah,
Well,
based on.
there needs to be a time limit as to, let's say, okay, so if within 3 months of the residential opening, that the commercial has to be up and running, and if there's any issue with that, they'll have known before that 3 months is up. But there has to be a stipulation in there that says these two go hand in hand.
According to this, nobody could move into that residence until the commercial is done and open.
Brody, can
What
I?
I'm concerned about is that it's not going to actually happen that way because.
Does it say open? I think it's just built.
Brody?
Yeah, so so
it must be completed.
process wise, before they start construction, we have a pre-construction meeting with all of the entities in the city that are involved, the public works, building inspectors, planning, so forth. And that gets set up front to the applicant right from the beginning before they start turning dirt, that, this is how this development will roll out. If for whatever reason their financing falls apart or whatever, and their commercial component either stops or whatever, and it doesn't get completed, then that residential building sits vacant until either they get their ducks in a row or a new developer comes, buys the project, who has the financing, finishes the commercial building, and then they can occupy the residential building.
But you know what's going to happen is they're going to come to city council and say, hey, look, if I could just start generating income, my building's here, it's done. I mean, I'm worried about how binding this is. We have to set it up to be binding.
Well, they can always come back and appeal to the council to amend the development agreement. That they can do that regardless.
Is there like a clause that says subject to death?
But the council does not have to amend the agreement.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. At one time, the ordinance said that you had to build the commercial first.
Yeah.
The input that I received.
Why did we lose that?
It's still there, it's right there.
Well, the input that we received is that wasn't feasible, like to actually be able to build the commercial at the same time or first. But that is what this does, is allows it to stagger a little bit. So a lot of times it's lending and debt management, so they can kind of get something going and then get kind of simultaneously but separate. At least that's how I understand it. Hopefully that works.
But what they don't want is they don't want to build a commercial building and maybe it's not living up to the pro forma, it might be struggling, and then they got to wait a whole nother year before their residential thing is built.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it is mixed use. This is not just residential community. So we have to have the mix.
Yeah, we mean business. They got to have the mix. They got to have follow through on their commitment and whatever.
This makes it possible.
And like Jordan was saying, if we want to add something that says that we'll document this in the development agreement right here, I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So that it's clear.
We need to go back to what Corinne brought up.
I agree. That's where I was going to go next. Is we need to go back to that point 9A, because
F9 or F.
A, C, and D are all concerns with this. If we're looking, some commercial are going to want to build how they want to build, and these are not going to work.
Well, I think
I answered for that, but
frontage is okay. Frontage on a street or corner, I think is fine.
That's good. Yeah.
I don't think we want to require them to be a multi-tenant because like you said, if we want a
Costco.
Trader Joe's in there,
Yeah.
then I want them to allow them to build a Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And are we worried about the architectural motif is only if it's connected to something else. I mean, you don't want to force something
Right.
Yeah.
in the middle of something that's already, it's pre-done.
Right, exactly. And then also, why do we need to have it be 2 stories if it's not on site
Yeah.
with the other development?
We don't.
It's just limiting without having any
Yeah.
real purpose. I mean, we're just adding a lot of parameters that are gonna tie
Really
something
hard.
to a corner. Yeah.
I think
I'm gonna say no.
yeah, I could respond to why it's in there, and you guys can decide if you want to keep it in there. So
Yeah.
Sure.
this ordinance is meant to be a form-based ordinance, and
Right.
the form that we're after. So you guys are thinking Costco, Trader Joe's. I think originally what we were imagining and what we were fearing is that we would get a Burger King and an apartment complex behind the Burger King. And that's not really the look and feel that we were going for because it's so put together. Because this would require that maybe they do, most likely a Burger King's not going to conform with this. So it does limit us of what kind of commercial tenants will go into this zone. But that's up to you guys. If we're okay with letting whatever drive-through fast food or a gas station, well, I guess it says you can't have gas, but
Okay, I think our precursor or our qualifier here is that it has to say if this is adjacent to the housing units. But if it's not, because we're discussing all these others that can be a quarter of a mile away. So I think maybe just qualify it with if connected to the housing.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. When it's off-site and a quarter mile away, then
This
we're
doesn't
not-
apply.
Still might.
the development that's away. So
And I also don't necessarily want to require it to be a multi-tenant.
I don't either.
Because
Right.
even a multi-tenant, you could have a Burger King, a Subway, and
sure.
Chinese food.
Well,
With our luck, it'll be another pharmacy.
it really stems from kind of, obviously we're not going to get exactly this, but if we want this, it's usually not just one thing. We're after kind of
Right.
the main street.
But see, that's probably not a commercial only that you're showing right there. That is a
Right.
true mixed use with a
Storefront on the first floor.
storefront on the first floor and apartments above.
Yeah.
And even if it's not
What we thought we were writing the ordinance for, but
yeah, I mean, if you guys want to change direction, we can. It's just, even if it's not apartments above, sometimes it's the form of how we want the buildings to look. Sometimes they'll build a commercial building and there's some, imagine that maybe it's just 2 stories and the second story is like a
Storage.
a dormer, and it's a false, like Jordan said, it might just be storage, but it's the look and the scale of the buildings that we're going for.
If it's built on site, then I think that that's okay. If it's off site, I don't think we need to have any,
Yeah, I understand.
parameters.
Maybe we just add, gosh, where'd it go now? There, right there.
Yeah.
We just add another bullet point that says like, partner sites may have buildings which are entirely commercial, not meeting A through D or whatever.
The only thing is, though, I still think if it is on site, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a multi-tenant. If it's a very successful business and they want more space, go for it.
I agree.
And if a Trader Joe's did want to take the entire bottom portion of that area and just have it be open but look like they're separate buildings, that would be great.
Can we possibly even just change some of that to, keep the frontage or street corner, and then have it, if it's on site with the development, to be in the same form or complementary to the mixed use development.
Complementary to the theme.
Yes, rather than all those other.
And I'm just,
I don't know if that's clear
just
enough.
me thinking, you know, planning for the worst and hoping for the best. I always think of like a national chain that might come in and if we don't have any teeth, they'll exploit this to put their cookie cutter building in.
But if it's on-site built with it, then it has to conform to the style or motif of the multi-family living.
What
So
if,
then it returns that to that form-based suggestion.
what if A were to read are built as single or multi-tenant?
That would be fine.
So that it can be either.
Either. Okay, I'm good with that. I don't think it necessarily has to be 2-story though. You know, there's the whole fight of, hey, we don't want bigger. So just saying.
Yeah. Well, and especially once again, if we want to do housing above it and the building beneath, then you don't want to say that you have to take the 2 stories or 3 stories, but they actually are just the one.
Well, that's not this one because this one specifically says this is commercial only. So that
That
building
is
would fall under
correct.
different guidelines.
And I think, and I
Okay.
think the motif would have to be at least 2-story so that the motif blends with what else is in the development.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What if the rest of the development is only 1 story if they didn't have enough square footage?
Right. And that's the question, is that, you know, if it also is the same building materials, the same style, is 1 story so bad? Just wondering.
Yeah, we want to make sure, I mean, we don't want to push this higher and taller than it needs to be, but we want it to be the form that we want it to be. And if it's going to be a 3-story residential building and then you have a 1-story commercial next door, it might look a little funny.
Agree.
And it might, having that 2nd story, if they don't really want to do it, they might put some storage or it, you know, we're not really forcing a height per se. We're just forcing maybe a mezzanine or storage area or dormers or a parapet or even almost like maybe we could say like the appearance of 2 stories. Maybe they have some sort of parapet or false parapet that has some windows that kind of looks like that.
I think a lot of this is covered by, it has to match the motif of the surrounding area. If the surrounding area is 3 stories,
Right.
then I would expect the motif to be something along that. It doesn't have to be all the way to 3, but it has to be at least 2. So it has to be within a story of the other stuff. Like,
Or at least look proportionate somewhere.
yeah. I think you kind of cover that in some of the motif and say this includes the height as well.
The height will be.
We're willing to go down, but not necessarily up. I don't think we need to require a 3 stories if all the rest of it's 3 stories. So I see where you settled on 2.
What if we say you can't have a difference of more than 1 story different in height to the adjacent building or let's not use the word adjacent again, but the building next
Neighboring building.
neighboring.
I think that's fine.
So you have
But if the
down. So if you're
but
next,
even if it's a false look though, I mean kind of a facade, I'm okay with that though too. Like you were saying, a mezzanine type doesn't have to be a full 2-story, but you've got some dormers on the top that aren't real kind of thing.
we could say have the appearance of at least 2 stories.
Okay.
But then we would hate to have it turn into one of those buildings it's actually just a box and they put a weird fake on there, kind of like.
That's why it needs to conform with. It has to conform with the design and the motif. It has to, if it's adjacent or within the mixed use community.
And then we still have the ability to give feedback and kind of nudge it in the direction that would be appealing to the motif and architectural design.
Yeah, you'll get elevations of the buildings with the proposal, and
so if it just like sticks out like a sore thumb and doesn't pass the LISA standard, we just say
Let's just say building cannot be ugly.
Okay, so I think we're rehashing the same thing here. There's another part that really concerns me, and that would be where we have these required commercial square foot maximum height ratios. I appreciate that you base this on something real. However, when I read this, my first question was, if not one of the things that we were shown, what might somebody do with this? So I started looking around at different possible designs and things that are commonly being built right now. There's a lot of things. So this is based on the assumption that the two projects that we've looked at are going to be about 1,000 square foot of residential space. However, there's a lot of stuff being built out there that's half that size. So my concern would be, how does this apply when somebody brings us a proposal for 500 or 600 square foot tiny apartments? And are we really getting the ratio of apartments to square footage space that we really want? I get it, it's the same square footage, but you can't have all these tiny little apartments and then have one medium-sized commercial thing off in the corner and expect that that's a good ratio. So I'm concerned that this is too small. The ratio is too small.
I've already pushed it as far as, what I would feel comfortable recommending. And as far as square feet, I don't think there's been a 500 square foot apartment built in the state of Utah, unless it's designed for homeless or something.
I agree.
There's some over in Layton that's only about 650. And so, I mean, literally 500, maybe not, but maybe that's a little more New York City, but we do get down to the 600 and 700 stuff quite commonly around here.
But it takes more of them to equal 1,000 square foot. So in a way, that's okay. Because one of them's not going to equal a square foot. You have to,
yes, a square foot is still a square foot, no matter what.
Right.
I guess my point is, I'm looking at a ratio between buildings. If we allow the smaller buildings to be built, do we still get enough commercial diversity out of a mixed use subdivision? That's my question. Do we get enough complementary success out of this if somebody turns and dials down the residential units so that they can jack up the number of units?
Yeah. From what I've learned, and I'm still learning, but each project has a mix. I haven't seen anybody just put in as many 1-bedroom units as possible to just increase the number of units. Usually they have market studies and consultants that will indicate what the market demand is for the different types of bedrooms. So you have 3, 2, 1 bedroom units, and unless the market study says that the demand for kind of micro apartment living or studio apartments, like you're saying, usually those small ones are more of an urban area, or sometimes they're even geared towards homeless or kind of that college dorm kind of style. Sometimes they don't even have their own, this isn't a hostel kind of somewhere.
Those are, more specialty populations that are just not normal housing situations.
Corinne, did I see you having a comment?
No, no, I was fiddling with the doorknob. Don't worry. I was just listening. Thank you, though.
But I'm open to whatever you guys think. If you want to change it back to,
I like how it is. I think, I mean, maybe and I don't know if this is too proscriptive, but if we put something in there that said something around development projects need to have units that average 900 square feet or greater across the development or something like that, that would limit the ability to put in just a bunch of small units, have a lot of units essentially.
See, I think we kind of fixed that when we took it away from units and said just 1,000 square foot of residential.
I agree.
I think we fixed that already.
I agree,
Well,
because if the units, if it's based on units, then you would get the push for the smaller units. But this is square foot, so I think it's good.
Lisa?
Yeah, listening to all of it, agreed. I do think on this particular one, it's been fixed. I think it went away. If it had been units, I would be concerned that it would just be, oh, they'll just get in teeny tiny units, but square footage is square footage.
Okay, so I'm going to agree that it probably solves it on a big development. But what happens when somebody pushes towards a small development and do we actually get enough commercial? Or yeah, if let's say that they only build smaller apartment units and only a few of them maybe there's less total square footage. I guess what I'm suggesting here, the solution would be is to boost the low end, not necessarily the high end, but to assure that any development at least gets, I don't want somebody to say, 12 square foot's not even a closet. Nobody, that's not even a room per apartment. Let's say that they only build 5 or 6 apartments, like on that development that is just north of CVS. They've only got 6, 7 units. If that were mixed use, and it's not, I'm not trying, but let's imagine a property that size. Is there any room for the mixed element? And I don't think there is. Maybe that means that it would never pass. So
I
I
agree.
guess maybe that solves it.
I would think that would be the case. Yeah.
But if they wanted to get up to the 3 stories like they are in that scenario, they would still have to get up to the 36, which still is not a whole ton. So that's 7,000 square feet, 36,
I don't want to see somebody find a loophole. I'm looking for a loophole. Maybe it's not there. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't let something happen that they build these apartment units and they say, okay, I built one coffee shop and it only is big enough for a pickup window, and or a snow shack qualifies me because that's all that they have to have.
and we probably don't want to force them to build a commercial where it's not a
right
good spot. So I think
maybe just common sense says we turn it down because we have that right. So I guess I guess I can go there. I was trying to think this through and make sure that we don't leave loopholes that we'll pay for later.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the right to turn anything down.
I appreciate that, Dave.
Works.
Okay, do we want to solidify? Do you have what you need on F, Noah, or are we, or how do you want to go with that?
Yes, we're going to strike, or no, we're going to add single or multi-tenant. It's complementary to the theme.
Can you scroll down? Noah, would you scroll down?
Sure. Yeah, so we could say are built as
single
or multi-tenant buildings with or even, what if we just said built with the appearance of multiple storefronts?
I want commercial, so I don't know if it's in line with the theme of the the residential portion. I don't know why we would need to make that.
I think we need to describe that.
Yeah, the issue I have with that is as soon as you say it has to have the appearance of multiple storefronts.
Which door?
Hey, which door? And that annoys me.
Yeah.
Being like, all right, which doors? And there's, you got to use the other door. Oh, for crying out loud. I parked by this
So
one.
just add single, like the mayor suggested.
Yep.
Okay, we'll stick with that.
We will allow it.
And then on D, I have,
I would strike that just so that it has, it's within the theme of the,
The motif, the architectural motif and theme of the.
yeah,
Right.
this one within the motif.
including height. You can add that in there too.
And see, but that's all in C is kind of what it says.
Yeah, it's the vertical.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you are. Never
I
mind.
think
Just
you've got it
strike
in C.
Oh,
Yeah, you do.
so strike this, and then we wanted to add something that if it's partner one, then you don't have to follow this.
Oh, right. Or maybe just in the title of
Only
9, do we say
understand.
buildings which are adjacent or neighboring or within the community?
Yeah, within the developed area. I don't know, within the.
Yeah.
The main area.
Within the residential.
What if you began number 9 with on-site buildings which are entirely?
There you go. That works.
There you go. We need the mayor.
Look
You know
at
what the
that.
site- Yeah, it is. We should know what the site is.
Some
Good,
good wordsmithing there.
good wordsmithing. Okay, on-site buildings, and then built as single or multi-tenant, strike.
Yes.
And then just say on striking the, I don't even know if we need A at all, really, because it says they're with multiple storefronts. So I don't understand the need for A at all, really. Does that make sense?
Whatever you guys want. Strike and strike.
Yeah, that's my call, or
Yep.
or my opinion. Not my call, my opinion.
Single-handedly?
Sorry. That's what I would say.
Is that what-
Can all of you support those 2 strikes?
I can.
Yep.
Yeah. That works.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So just have B and
Make it
C.
a little fluffier where we're gonna really rely on this phrase.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Penalty of death.
All right. Strike on site.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. No, I think this will get us closer to what we were going for.
Council, are we to a point where we could send this now back to the planning commission?
Have them look at it, and then
I'm good
when
with
we
it.
get it back, do we get to review again?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hopefully, well, I guess we'll see what planning commission has to say about it.
I'm good with that. Let them look at it.
By the way, council, I've interviewed 3 for the planning commission alternate spot. Have not yet made my decision, but hopefully at the work session later in April, I'd like to have that individual there for you to ask them questions. All 3 are male.
Okay.
Okay, Noah, do you have what you need?
Yeah, I've got it. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna put this on the planning commission agenda for next Tuesday, but I'm gonna email you. I'm gonna try to make these corrections while it's fresh on my mind, and I'll email them out to you.
Okay, to all of us.
Good work with that, Noah. That was tough.
Yeah.
Thank you, council. It's been a very productive. We did that under time. It's like we ran the marathon in record pace.
Saving up for Friday.
Yeah.
Feel some sunlight.
Seriously, thanks for your input. Like I said, this is complex, and there's things that I don't see, and it's good to have a good set of eyes on it.
Council, I'd like to have the task force that processed loan applications. Lisa and Jordan participated in that with Noah. Lisa, can you lead us out on what you did? And then Noah, can you lead us in where we are with that application?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. We had 15 businesses apply, I believe. Well, and you can look through to see what the loan details were. But to go over it quickly, it was for a 0% interest and nothing down, 36-month payoff. Payments would start in January, and they can pay off early. We had the $250,000 that we could allot. It went to, I believe, 311, something like that, was around that number was what the requests came in at. So we kind of went through everything and were able to prioritize which businesses we thought might, would for sure need the full amount, and others we thought maybe we could scale down a little bit. We had them explain their needs. We assessed it as a committee, prioritized according to several factors, things like the cost of their business, cost for them to do business, the longevity in Syracuse, their ability to reverse the pandemic issues. There were a few businesses that completely could not, couldn't reverse. So one of the businesses had events that would only be spring and graduation events, and there's just, you can't just say, oh, we'll save that until later, we'll do that in June or July instead. They just lost business. And so some of them we went also according to employee numbers, their history, our history with companies, things like, and kind of ability to pay back what would be.
Noah, you're still sharing.
What's
Sorry.
that? Sorry.
I had to let Noah know he was still sharing.
Thank
Okay.
you. I get in the habit of giving myself notes, and yeah, I'll stop that.
We really tried to consider the needs of each business, and we had Paul there to make sure that as we discussed everything, there was nothing that would be said that was disparaging towards any business, but we didn't have a problem with that at all. We're just grateful for all these people that do business in our city. We also worked together to simplify the loan application that they would be sent out. So this was a precursor kind of a thing to kind of go over what the requests were and how much of our funding we would have available. And then the companies that we approved, which was all of them, we were able to say yes to, and not necessarily how much they would request, but what we could give them. Then we have them fill out an application. So as we went over the application process, we didn't want to make it burdensome. We could have based it off of a lot of tax returns, but we came to the conclusion that we needed to do more of a stated income and kind of show that they have been able to pay their payments. They have been able to make deposits. So we basically simplified the loan process to make it less burdensome, especially since we have such a quick turnaround. We don't have the staff that, first of all, has been trained in loan processing. And also, secondly, that would have the time to go over all of the minutia if we required all of their business accounts. There's, an S Corp, an LLC, a DBA, any of those things that we had to process. We didn't want it to become convoluted at best, So we wanted to just have it be information that was pertinent to them actually being in business. We're looking to meet tomorrow. We did have Noah. I noticed right before we started this meeting, I realized you'd sent an email that somebody had decided they didn't need that. They wanted to remove their name from consideration so that the funds could go to another business, which was really great of them. And I didn't get many more details than that, but we are looking to meet tomorrow to look through applications. Is that right, Noah?
Yeah, yeah. That we still have a few that are still trickling in, so it may need to be Thursday. I'll let you guys know. All
right. And then we wanted to have the turnaround be basically that we could disperse funds by the end of the week, because we know time is of the essence. That's pretty important. So, okay. And that is my report.
Jordan, would you add whatever you have?
The only thing I would add is, we were really trying to make sure that we analyzed not only the company, but also the risk that it was to the taxpayer funds. We want to try and help these people out as much as possible, but we wanted to try and find a criteria so that we would be reasonably comfortable that this was a business that was not going to fail even if we gave them funds. If they were already on struggling to make payments and things like that, we want to make sure our form would catch some of those, because while I want to help as many people as possible, this is taxpayer money, and we wanted to make sure that we were as careful with it as possible to make sure that it's being allocated in such a way that it'll maximize the benefit to the residents of Syracuse. So we were, while we had to have a little bit of tough love in a few of these where we just want to make sure that we would know if there was an issue, and that's why we put some of the criteria in the application that we did.
Thank you. Any of you have questions for them? Corinne, Seth, or David?
I just had a question. Do you feel that maybe you got to this, but do you feel that there were applicants or will be applicants that are going to be still left on the table who were qualified and appropriate for these funds? Or do you feel that we've been able to really be flexible enough to meet the need?
Well, my opinion before we saw any extras trickle in was that we had really done well. Not everybody requested the full 30,000. Several of them requested 10 or under, and then we would, even if they had requested the full 30, we did use some criteria if we couldn't, because like I said, we didn't have the funds to meet all of their needs. So we would maybe just take some of them down a little bit to fit more people on the table. I would say, not having seen the extras trickling in, I think we did very well. And especially when we would use criteria like, can they recover from this? Like, let's say, for instance, a dentist, without naming any names. If a dentist is at a standstill, we know they're struggling right now. But if somebody has a cavity, they have to have that cavity filled. So they would likely come back in the months after the coronavirus quarantine is over, and they'll pick up their business again. And it's not like, oh, those people would have gone to another dentist, therefore they've lost them as customers. So, so there were a few little things like that that we really worked to figure out what their recovery ability was, whereas some other businesses were just lost business for good and in big portions. So yeah, I do think, Seth, that we did pretty well, and we discussed it as the whole committee, and I feel like we were able to meet a lot of needs.
Can I ask one more question? So as far as, I mean, this is a good measuring stick for early indications of the impact on our community. I mean, just generally, can you speak to how detrimental it's been so far, and from your guys' observations of what you've seen and the requests coming in, what this looks like early on to our business community and such?
I think as we read through a lot of the applications, it's largely what we've expected. There is a lot of, the restaurants are not getting the same number of people they used to. Going from a sit-down restaurant to a takeout only has affected a lot of people, because if you're going to get takeout anyway, there's other places. So we didn't really get a lot from the companies that are already doing takeout as kind of their main business. Fast food type, really it's been focused around those places that rely on people walking into their location and doing a service. And so I wasn't surprised by a lot of them. There was actually a few that I was surprised didn't apply, but I was glad to see that as you read through their criteria for asking for it, they were all very upfront. I'm extremely grateful for these businesses that are willing to keep people on staff and keep paying them. A lot of them are saying, all I'm trying to do is just try and keep my employees getting a paycheck, and we're trying to have them do other things and around the store and do that kind of stuff. And I'm grateful for those companies, and I think this is a good way to try and keep as many people in the location, making their place of employment a little bit better. And so I think I was impressed by that, and I'm looking forward to see what they can do with some of this as we go forward and see it as things open back up again.
I would like to add, though, that the longer this goes on, the effects are catastrophic for some businesses. And if the leaders of the nation and the state don't say, let's move forward on this, we're going to see repercussions. I don't know how we'll even recover. So that's my opinion as a business owner that's actually considered an essential business. And we have seen an incredible decline simply because a lack of traffic. So.
Dave or
Makes
Corinne?
sense.
Dave or Corinne, do you have questions of the two?
They mostly covered it. I just want to say that's amazing what you guys have been able to do in 2 weeks. So thank you. And I think just the act of reaching out to the community or to those businesses and letting them know that we're thinking about them is huge in itself. So I really appreciate the work you guys did. And I'm glad that we were able to do this in a logical and empathetic way. Thank you.
If I can say something real quick too, Mr. Mayor, is that okay?
Let me have Dave respond first, and then I'd like to hear from you about where we are. Do you have anything, Dave, for the other?
Jordan addressed most of my concern, because I've been really concerned that that if we could only help so many, that we didn't put those funds in somebody who is in a non-recoverable situation. Anybody we can save, I want to be able to save. But there comes that point where you have to triage and say, there's no hope here left. I mean, we could try and keep them alive, but it is taxpayer money. So we have to be responsible. And if there is no hope that they would ever repay this, I hate to be brutal. I don't want to be, but we can't help them just suffer longer. That's inhumane as well.
Thank you, Dave. Now, Noah, can you tell us where we are and where we're going, and any other comments that you have?
Sure. One of the consistent things that I heard from all the businesses is just gratitude. And it was eye-opening to me to hear some of them are in real desperate situations. And so they're just so grateful that you guys had the foresight to do that. And we didn't really know the right amount. I mean, I think Brody had some good foresight there in suggesting the 250, and that's about the right amount for the businesses that could qualify for that. We could have gone maybe a little bit more, but I think overall it's really going to help. And so they just wanted you to know that they're appreciative of it. And as we move forward this week, we're refining the financial analysis of each business. So if we see that there's no way that they're going to pay it, they can even possibly pay it back, we're not going to lend to them. But the first step was to get their letters of interest and kind of hear the dialogue of why they need it and how they've been impacted. And this next step that we're in the throes of is to analyze the financial data and make sure that we're not lending to a business that can't pay us back. So we're trying to do that quickly, but you have 15 businesses in a day. So we're trying to get through them as quick as we can. The goal is to start by this Friday. Realistically, it's probably going to continue over into next week, but that's still weeks faster than some of the federal and state money. So they're just very, very grateful that we have the money available and that we're moving as quickly as possible. So appreciate you guys that you guys have actually set an example regionally. There's been people asking me how we're doing it and the structure and all that. So there's a lot of people looking towards us as a good example.
Brody or Paul, you were both flies on the wall in those meetings. Do you have any comments?
Go ahead, Paul.
Nothing really to report. I think it was a fair process. We were concerned about retaining employees and focusing really on that. It wasn't about recovering lost profits. It was always, looking at, is there a need to keep yeah, to pay the rent and to help with the employees. So yeah, I had no concerns with it. I think this will be very helpful to the community.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, the only thing I'll touch on is just to expand on what Noah said. We were on a conference call with the Northern Utah Economic Development group through EDC Utah. And there were several other cities that asked Noah to send over kind of the format and kind of how we rolled it out so that they could consider that for their own businesses. So yeah, I think it was a good move, and I think they're appreciative, and I think we'll probably save some cities that you know, and that was the goal. If they go dark, it's a lot harder to bring them back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, council, what we'll do is we'll put Jordan and Lisa back to work, and then in our work session at the end of the month, we'll have them report back to us too. This coming Friday might be tough, Noah. We're not going swimming that day, but we're going to be busy. We're going to be busy. Let's talk a little bit. Let's discuss future agenda items and council announcements.
Can I just add, just to be clear, because that will be spending money when we actually give all those grants, at some point that will have to become public, right?
Yes.
So that the public record will reflect who received what?
Yes.
Okay,
You will, and you will see it.
and I don't need to, I mean, I understand why we're not naming names right now, because these are people in need. We're trying to work with them and help them, but at some point we have to be accountable. So I was just making sure.
Yeah. Do you have a counter to that, Paul? We will make that public.
No, yeah, definitely whenever there are funds distributed, we're going to have to account for that. There's no question. Yeah, at this point, we're trying to be discreet. There might be some that we discover that they're not eligible for the loan because their credit's really awful or something. And we'd hate to have publish that. So once it's all final, yes, that would all be made public.
Okay. Do we have additional discussion items for future agenda items or things that you didn't discuss in the previous session?
This isn't immediate urgent, but I would love to be able to talk to hear from our from Golden about fire codes. I had a short discussion with him, and Seth was there at the time after the fire engine day, that he says, there's a big difference between what technically meets code and what's smart. And I'd like him to kind of explain that to all of us. Just, which situations we should use the legislative power to protect the city.
Is there another that would like to see that on an agenda?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Aaron, would you touch base with Goldie? And can we put that on the work sessions, Cassie, for later in April?
Yes, I'll do that. I'll talk with him.
Okay. Anything else?
I want to see Seth's baby.
I can't put her on the agenda, but I'm sure I could wrap her.
I think you can if you disagree.
Congratulations, by the way.
By the way, I was a prophet, right? I knew you'd be involved. One last thing before we adjourn. On Friday's retreat, we are going to take a lunch break, but because we're not together, we're not going to have Uber deliver things. So if you'll prepare a lunch for yourself, we'll take a 15-20 minute break. We'll actually abandon the meeting and then we'll come back on. I think that starts at 12:10. But if you be prepared with a lunch at your home so that you could eat a little something. We've also got some biology breaks in both halves of that. So be prepared with something to munch on. And in our EOC meetings, Paul's been eating apples when he wasn't wearing a mask. So, Just be prepared. Brody, do you have anything in regard to the retreat that you'd like to talk
What?
about before we adjourn?
That's
I don't have anything. The presentation and info sheet was sent out earlier today. If there's any questions, I'll entertain them.
oh,
but I don't have any updates.
Okay.
Seth, did you need me to take planning commission this coming week?
Nope, I'll be good. I actually worked from the recovery room because we're all community. I know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
You're bad. I talked NBA basketball through my wife's delivery.
Mayor, I have an important emergency continuity meeting for my work at 1 o'clock on Friday. So I'll need to step out of turn off my camera, I guess, or whatever for an hour,
Okay.
just at the budget retreat. So,
Or you can just rejoin us.
yes, that'd be great.
Back in. Okay, I'll declare us adjourned and we'll see you on Friday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you. Night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.